Hello everyone, I'm Mike D'Angelo with That's Entertainment, and this is your retro review of Mega Man 2 by Capcom. There are a few video game mascots that have survived over 20 years. When they do, they're typically from the camps of Nintendo or Sega. Mario, Sonic, and Link, or Zelda if you're misinformed, have become household names. For a good part of the 80s and 90s, however, flagship characters shared the podium with the Blue Bomber, Mega Man. Mega Man came out in 1987, and only recently, all these years later, has Capcom slowly allowed him to nearly reach retirement. They've added him in spin-off titles and featured him as a cameo in their other games, but he's fallen off the radar as of late, with the exception of a fan-made game featuring a Street Fighter crossover that was endorsed by the publisher. But was the second release in the series, released in 1989, a worthy successor to the original? You know what? I'm not even going to waste your time. Yes, it was. It was the ridiculously ambiguous year 2000X. The villainous Dr. Wily, already defeated once by the Blue Bomber, returned with ambitions of taking over the world. That time, he was even more determined to be successful, crafting 8 ill-tempered robot masters to stop the heroic Mega Man. The nefarious Doctor would soon learn that his archenemy had not grown rusty in the absence of the chaos. Just as in the prior attack, Dr. Wily employed specialized robots to do his bidding. Mega Man would have to fight his way through the likes of Flashman, Bubbleman, and Crashman, using their powers to press through the carnage, eventually meeting up with the Doctor himself. If you were on the outside looking in, you would have been very hard-pressed to notice any glaring changes between the first two Mega Man games. Most of what made Mega Man remarkable was already set in stone by the original, though the second game did help to shape the series. After Mega Man 2, every one of the classic series games, as well as the Mega Man X games, followed the 8 Robot Master formula. This helped to lengthen the game and made the boss weaknesses a little less blatantly obvious. Though Mega Man 2 was somewhat less grueling than its predecessor, and even had an easier difficulty option, it had more balance, which led it to be more inviting. The Blue Bomber was able to rely on E-tanks that would refill his life if need be. Its password system also allowed gamers to be more casual with their approach. It was no longer required to beat the game in a single sitting. The game also introduced the extra items that Mega Man acquired over the course of the game, which would eventually evolve into using his robotic dog, Rush. In the first game, Mega Man only had access to a single item. During the era of the NES, it was fairly difficult to see tremendous change in graphical caliber. There wasn't too much that you could do with 8 bits, but Capcom managed to put on a fresh coat of paint that helped to embellish the style. The presentation itself was more thought out, and it shows. Bubbleman and Airman stages specifically stand out as some of the more complex and creative ones of the title. Once you reach Dr. Wily's fortress, the game shined even more. Additionally, it was the first game to use an opening cinematic, and it's one that's still praised today. Even if you would find it hard to give the old school graphics a pass, you'd have to be practically deaf not to commend the musical choices. The majority of games that come out today don't have nearly the same addictive quality that Mega Man 2 does. I challenge anyone to try and play through the game completely and not hum one of the tunes later that day or the next. When you think of Mega Man, you think of a storied series that has lasted throughout the ages. There are a few video games that have managed to see so many consecutive releases. At one point, however, it wasn't even a sure thing that Mega Man would continue. That was surprisingly just after the first game. Capcom cared so little for the Blue Bomber that they took their ideas for the second set of Robot Masters from the public. It was the high number of responses that allowed Inafune, the series producer, to even work on the second game. Perhaps it was because of that feedback that Mega Man 2 became the highest-selling Mega Man title of all time, selling 1.5 million copies. And because of how successful the second game became, the Blue Bomber would be featured in at least 128 games, more than any other character in Capcom's catalog. If you're looking for one of the games that truly express the feel of the NES, you'd be hard-pressed to find something as acceptable as Mega Man 2. It's weathered the ages, and still shines as an example of what the games of yesterday did right. You can find Mega Man 2 on compilations on the GameCube, PlayStation, and Xbox. The game's also available individually on the Virtual Console.